Good morning, everybody. You're very welcome to the Google Foundry, and thank you so much for making the effort to get here, especially in the context of the will they, won't they strike, which has led to some degree of traffic difficulties as well. So we really appreciate your support. This morning's discussion is entitled The Rise of the Robots. I'm Andy Pearce from Core Media and from the Marketing Society. And in a moment, I'm going to introduce you to today's speakers. But before I do, just a couple of quick orders of business. Firstly, I'd like to say a special thank you to our hosts today, to the guys from Google, particularly to Owen and Robin, who've been a huge help to us in getting set up today. This is the third year we've hosted this event in Google, and we're massively appreciative. Secondly, I'd like to take just a quick moment to update you on some of the events from the Marketing Society itself. The Society exists to provide the wider marketing community with thought leadership by providing a forum for senior marketers to connect, to network, and to share ideas and explore game-changing topics, which we don't always get to do when we're trapped behind our desks. In the past 12 months, we've seen a very strong rise in interest in all of our events. To capitalize on this, we'll be making a drive to increase the membership over the coming year. And just to give you some of the figures associated with that, individual membership costs $150, and corporate membership, which gives 3 nominated people, costs €375. Across a full year, an individual member can expect to see savings of about €120, while the corporate membership offers savings of just under €900, so it provides great value for money. This year, we're going to be creating a number of special members-only events, particularly a fireside chat, which will be an exclusive event and feature a very, very senior global marketer. Further details on that we expect to announce in the coming months. In the next 2 months, we'll also be creating and launching our Future Council. This is going to be made up of newer members of the industry to promote thought leadership of that next generation of marketers. And we'll shortly be calling for entry submissions for that as well. And finally, today marks the deadline for submissions for the Research Awards. This year's winners will be announced at the Society's Gala Christmas Lunch on the 4th of December, and we look forward to seeing many of you there, I hope. But now, this morning, sometimes it feels like the world of marketing is moving incredibly fast, and the pace of change is increasing. And the reality is, we feel that way because it is. We're living through one of the periods of the greatest change in the communications industry that we have ever experienced. This morning's event is titled The Rise of the Robots, and it's the latest in our series exploring the future of marketing. We'll be discussing how the rise of technology firms, social firms, the rise of connected devices, and the rise of the Internet of Things have the potential to change the face of marketing as we know it over the coming years. Imagine a situation where your fridge does the grocery shopping for you, where Facebook or Google know you're sick before you do. What is the role that marketing is going to play in that environment? Hopefully we'll discuss and tease out some of that this morning. On to our speakers. We have an absolutely unbelievable lineup of speakers for you this morning, and I am hugely appreciative to all 3 of them for taking the time out of their busy schedule to join us. It's a real treat. First up is Thomas Crampton. Thomas is the Global Managing Director of Social at Ogilvy. And I actually just discovered recently that Thomas and I both studied the same course in college, as he spent a year of his time studying history right here in Dublin. Unfortunately, that's where our careers have diverged. Thomas comes with an enviable pedigree, not just in social, but in the wider world of communications. Prior to taking up his current global role, Thomas built up the Social at Ogilvy offering across Asia Pacific from a small handful of members forming one team in Hong Kong to a dominant agency across the region and a multi-award-winning agency as well. Prior to that, he was a globe-trotting reporter with both the New York Times and the International Herald Tribune. And most recently, he spoke at this week's Web Summit. Yet, despite that, this is his Marketing Society debut. And he assures me that this is the jewel in the crown. Next up, Finian Murphy. Finian has worked in marketing in Ireland for the past decade on pretty much all sides of the industry. He's currently a planner with Ignite Research and is also a co-founder of Agility, a crowdsourced project consultancy which aims to deliver great ideas to clients. He was behind the recent Straight Up for Equality campaign, which you may remember from the recent marriage referendum, and is also a veteran of the Web Summit as well. Finian's going to share with us a sneak preview of a project he's been working on which is looking at the role brands will play in all of our lives in the year 2020. And he's going to walk us through what a day in the life of our future selves might look like. And then finally, we're delighted to welcome Oisin Lunny. Oisin is part of the market development team with Open Market, where he develops strategic business and technology solutions. So Open Market provide mobile engagement solutions for some of the world's leading companies, including a slew of Fortune 500 companies and 5 of the world's top 10 brands. He's a pioneer in terms of global thought leadership in mobile and in digital space. He's over 20 years working in technology. And he's a frequent contributor to The Guardian and also an advisory board member with The Economist's Big Think project. Somehow, he also finds time for a parallel career in music, where he's contributed to numerous film scores and I believe has had a top 30 UK record, which he might tell us about later on. So that's the plan. Just to recap our speakers and their Twitter handles here as well. If ever there was any doubt about their credentials in this space, what you'll notice is that Thomas Crampton, Finian Murphy, and Oisin Lunny have all managed to secure first name, last name at Twitter, which gives us an indication about their credentials. The hashtag for today is MarSocRobots, so please feel free to tweet away. And after we finish up with the discussions, we're going to pause for a quick Q&A as well. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our first speaker on stage, Thomas Crampton. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. It's great to be here. I am going to be delivering a speech which would normally, I'm taking a bit deep breath here because this would normally take much longer to do. I'm going to do it at rapid speed, knowing that we're going to have a Q&A afterwards. But if, so please prepare questions. I hope I will raise a lot of questions through this that we can discuss afterwards. The topic I'm going to be talking about is deep social. Deep social being what I view as the next phase of what social is going to be. And as Andy mentioned, the insights that I have here, or my perspective on where this is and where it's going, is based on running this team of about 900 people globally who are focused very much on helping companies to understand, strategize, and execute in social media. So without further ado, I'm going to rapidly go through this. First of all, we are connected now in more ways than ever before. The amount of time people spend on social media, on smartphones, the portion of the world's population that is on smartphones. These connections have really fundamentally changed us in deep ways that are not always appreciated or understood or recognized in terms of making a small decision. Where am I going to go this evening? What am I going to do? Or where am I going to go on holiday? What car am I going to buy? The challenge, and I'm sure many people in this room can relate to that, is now we feel quite overwhelmed by social media. There's so much information coming in at all times. This is coming in from friends, from publishers, news organizations, and companies. Adding to this problem is the challenge that many companies are overwhelming us with pretty useless information. They're shoving through forced ideas that are pushed onto platforms with no relevance to us. They're taking a very tactical approach to social. There's siloed thinking around how what they're doing is very separate from the broader company, non-strategic, and at the end of the day, highly ineffective what they're actually doing within social media. The result is what I'd call shallow social. One example of that is superficial content. Superficial content, here we're looking at the Instagram feed of Audi, which decided they would like to get a lot of artists to talk about the brand value of paid my dues. Paid my dues being, I paid my dues, now I can drive an Audi. So their idea was, let's work with an artist or several artists to come up with the ideas of that artist's conception of what paid my dues is. And this is one example of that. It turns out people who are following Audi on Instagram want to look at cars. Okay, no more of this non-car idiocy, I unfollow. Where are the cars? You idiots, do you not read your comments? So basically, this is something that is really going counter to what this platform was for Audi and what users are trying to get there. They've broken the social contract, if you will. Aimless connections. Aimless connections is where you're just making connections, collecting likes, collecting retweets. In this case, it was the New York Police Department who came up with the idea, okay, we're going to get the MyNYPD hashtag as a way to collect pictures of people with their favorite local neighborhood policeman. It didn't turn out that way. They got plenty of photographs posted, and to this day, it is almost like a complaints line for people that are annoyed with the New York Police Department. So for self-preservation within this zone, what's happening is we are all more and more retreating into much smaller, more private networks. We're blocking ads, the whole trend towards ad blocking, which I think is a great trend, really, fundamentally. And social platforms themselves are tightening their filtering algorithms. In other words, we're filtering more and seeing less. And we only look at what we want to see it and when we want to look at it. So it's a much more narrow world that we're looking at. This presents a real challenge for brands. How are you going to maintain relevance and resonance? How are you going to excite potential customers when they're so distracted? How are you going to engage and bond with them when there is very little loyalty? In terms of resonance and relevance, what we really need to do is move from a marketing mindset to a publisher mindset. By publisher mindset, I don't mean an old line newspaper. Publisher mindset, really what this is about is a focus that's moving from something that is very brand-centric to something that is more audience-informed. A publisher, when they're putting something out, if we look at a BuzzFeed or maybe some of the publishers that are traditional publishers that have much more adapted to the times, what you're constantly doing is try to understand what is it that my audience wants to see. How can I relate to them? Rather than what brands traditionally did, which was shout a message as loud as you possibly can through every channel. So this is an audience-informed element where you're bringing that in a much stronger way. How do you excite potential customers in an era of distraction? This is about transforming from superficial content to great stories and experiences. Superficial content, there's way too much of it. Basically, a lot of brands have set themselves up as saying, okay, we need to have a Facebook page. Well, I'd ask, I'm the guy running social media, and I'm asking, do you really need a Facebook page? And if you do need a Facebook page, what are you going to post on there that is of value? Because just filling a Facebook page with a lot of content is not going to bring you a huge amount of value. You need to fill that Facebook page or use social. Don't even focus on the platform. Use social in a way that is valuable for what you're trying to accomplish as a business, and that content should all be driven towards accomplishing that goal. Finally, how do you engage and bond with customers spoiled for choice and holding little loyalty? This is where you move from aimless connections to meaningful conversations and advocacy. Meaningful conversations. This is going from the previous era of risk mitigation and really making social a way that you can drive towards revenue opportunities by engaging with people with problems that they have and how you can help solve them. So the sum of this we really call deep social, which is using the publisher mindset to create great stories and experiences, meaningful conversations delivered through a range of approaches globally. So let's unpack each of those ones a little bit more. Marketing mindset to publisher mindset. You move from being a brand marketer or broadcaster to a culturally relevant publisher. This is that audience mindset. This is where you're moving to a situation where you are understanding what people are looking for. It can be through search, social, what are they talking about in your brand and category. You're building the brand through a strategic approach to content development and engagement. This means you're looking to see what it is that people want, how they are looking for it, and what you can do to understand their mindset at the time. What are they comparing you with a competitor? And finally, you're using data and social analytics to ensure strategies are brand-driven and audience-informed. Data, which I've not done as a call-out in this, really has to be embedded throughout every element of it. Right up front, as it's ongoing, and also the way that you're going to measure your success is how much engagement is going on and how is that taking place. So transforming from a superficial content to great stories and experiences, you're working to excite customers through insight, inspiration, and innovation. Insights. This is using data and social analytics to help brands connect naturally with the right audience in the right place at the right time. Where are they talking about where are the conversations taking place where people are becoming aware that your product or service exists? How do we engage in those conversations? What is the language being used? What are the terms being used? They might not be the ones that we use as a company internally to talk about things. Let's speak in the language of the customers, and what are the insights that we can bring in about behavior. And I'll give one example of that where we use that with a client. Inspiration. We need to express ourselves through creative and effective, culturally relevant storytelling and experiences. This means that it will not cut it going forward, posting something every day mechanically about something that you think might be relevant to your audience. It has to have a level of inspiration. It has to have a level of something that is special and stands out. The creative element is absolutely crucial here. Posting, people will filter, the people will not just filter out that content if it's the same sort of approach every day, but the platform's algorithms will filter out the content. Innovation. It's about cutting through to distracted audiences by doing things first or differently. This doesn't mean you do something just for the sake of doing it first, but on some levels, that's exactly what you're doing. You're trying to show something new, show something different, show something that excites people that they have never seen before. It might be a different approach. It might be a different way of talking about it. I'll give one example of that shortly. Shift from aimless connections to meaningful conversations. Basically, you're trying to build trust through precision bonding and backing it all with measurement. Precision. You're moving away from a zone of broad demographics. We're looking for 23-year-olds who are interested in holidays in the Mediterranean to looking at behavior, interests, and friendships. This allows us to dive in much more deeply in terms of figuring out how we're going to relate to people. We did an example of that with working with British Airways, where they wanted to sell off a lot of, they wanted to get rid of seats that were not sold towards the last minute. They asked us to try and sell those at a discount. We said, no, let's not sell them at a discount. Let's find a way to sell them at a premium. What we did is, using the behavior, interests, and friendships, we figured out, okay, there's an extra 60 seats to Salzburg next weekend. Let's target all of the people who are interested in opera, not just sell them the ticket, but package it with the plane ticket, but package that with tickets to the opera with a hotel, and put it all together as an offer that is only served up to people who have that particular interest in mind. Bonding is moving from community management to customer bonding, shifting the focus from risk mitigation to revenue opportunities. This means that you're going through you're looking at opportunities for acquisition, leads, and sales. This is not currently community management, where everybody celebrates the end of the day when there were no problems. A community manager's good day is, yes, nothing bad happened. This is taking a shift and looking, how can we actually drive revenue? How can we use social as a way to move forward customers and actually build up sales? And you measure your success by harder business metrics, lead, sales, brand performance, loyalty, and advocacy, not through the number of likes that you're getting. So very quickly, this is just publisher mindset, where you're increasing the efficiency of what you're producing. I'm going to flip through these very quickly so we can talk about the bigger ones. This is the one I'd like to look at for the insights, which is where we were trying to find a way to increase Chinese tourists going to the UK, where they found the UK was a very cold and distant place. They couldn't relate to it, and there were actually fundamental problems. And the discussions we found online were people trying to figure out, what do you call Stonehenge in Chinese? And there are all these different names, adding to confusion and making people feel that it was a fairly distant place to visit. And this is what we helped them to do.
For centuries, the British roamed the world, snapping English names on just about everything. So when it came time to promote Great Britain in China, we thought the Chinese might like to return the favour, with great Chinese names for Great Britain.
Now, Britain is launching its largest ever tourism campaign, and it's based around asking people to choose the Chinese name for a range of British landmarks.
We want funny names, we want thought-provoking names, we want names which are poetic.
就叫它迷字小镇，自由之路，荣耀之路，
山坡上的蚯蚓。
We invited them to suggest names for over 100 iconic British attractions online, and the names poured in.
女王驾到，
侠盗里，
占星塔，
七燕谷，
白色大裸奔，
高帅富之路。
For places not listed on the site, namers were encouraged to personally visit the location and be the first to upload their submissions to Weibo, along with proof of visit. A Chinese Beatles fan named Yu Ran grabbed the opportunity to name Beatles landmarks in London and Liverpool.
现在终于命名完了，这就叫潘尼路了。
The names were immortalized on Wikipedia, Baidu, and Google Maps. And the campaign became a talking point both in China and abroad.
多了上百个景点。
The new Chinese name for the Gherkin building in London translates quite literally to the pickled little cucumber.
the famous Highland Games. Some feel it could be better translated as strong man, skirt party.
This was the first time in history one country had invited the citizens of another to come up with names for its major landmarks. And as a result, Britain is greeting a lot more Chinese tourists this year.
Thank you very much，大功告成了，我可能创造了一段小历史。
This next example is one where we're looking to, this is not Visit Britain, this is British Airways, where they wanted to increase the amount of traffic, North American traffic. The challenge was the traffic across the Atlantic is pretty stagnant. We had to go through a process of basically data analysis of what are the routes that we could link from North America to elsewhere in order to grow their revenue in North America. And the answer that we came up with was actually getting expatriate Indians in North America to go back to visit their families in India and South Asia. So this is a very narrow group, narrow segment in North America that we're trying to reach, expatriate South Asians. You can't do a TV ad for that. You can't do a billboard for that. How are you going to reach them? They're spread out, quite geographically diverse. We ended up doing this, which was only presented online, only in social media. And two things it shows. It shows the precision targeting, the bonding, and also one of the most important things, which is that the social and digital does not mean the lack of emotion. And in fact, it's a tremendous channel for having emotional bonding.
My name is Ratnesh. I'm originally from Mumbai. I like to call it Bombay because I grew up there. What do I remember from Bombay? Well, playing in the streets, taking the local, jasmine gajras in the flower market, and my mother praying in the morning. You can move thousands of miles away, but these images, they are always with you.
I'm Alka. My full name is Alka Rani Dubey. I'm 61 years old. My son is Ratnesh. He's staying in New York. First, when he told me he wanted to go to the US, I felt very excited. But when the moment came when he was leaving India, that time I was really very nervous and quite heartbroken, I must say. Today, British Airways has given me a seat on a plane. It is for my son's favorite dish, okra paratha. They will fly it to America and surprise him in his apartment. I think this will make him come home and visit his mummy. I like every mother does. I used to experiment with different things, putting in his tiffin box. Most of the time, the other vegetables, they will return from the school untouched. But whenever I am giving okra, it is finished. I asked him, why do you like okra the most? He said, Mama, my teacher has told the child who eats okra becomes best in his mathematics. My son is progressing day by day. His dreams are getting fulfilled. And his happiness is more than what I ever want for him. When he will look at the tiffin box, first he will think from where has it come. But once he tastes the food, he will know it is made by his mummy. And I am sure he will start searching for me in his apartment. I miss him so much because when he left home, he was hardly 17 years old. And from that day, he did not return home. I miss my son.
My mom had cooked my favorite meal, and she was waiting for someone from British Airways to pick up the tiffin carrier. So they sent me. After flying from New York to Mumbai, there I was, walking to her door, smelling her cooking. It was an incredible feeling. Sometimes, even when you know what's going to happen, you cannot even imagine how it's going to be. I got the opportunity to see my mother in a way I'd never seen her before. She looked lonely. She looked like she sounds over the phone. I just wanted to run out and give her a hug. Mommy, I'm here.
It was a great moment. It was a family moment. Even his dad was there. We all three of us sat, we talked. And I didn't ask him, when are you leaving? I said, I will not ask you today. Let this question for tomorrow.
And one element of that was it's a very emotional movie, obviously, a film, but delivered entirely through social, but it actually brought business metrics. It actually changed behavior. It actually brought people to go back to Mumbai and visit their mothers. Very quickly, innovation can be very important as well. This is one which I don't have time to go through, but it's where it's very hard to reach audience. So in this case, we actually made the audience the media in the sense that they do not read traditional media. We gave an experience that they shared among one another, which created that was basically the platform through which the information was shared and the campaign was delivered. Finding the right people in a precise way, bonding with them in a meaningful way. This is finding the right people who are interested in Colombian coffee, delivering messages about Colombian coffee to them, resulting in a huge ROI in terms of the purchases of the kinds of coffee that people were looking for. And finally, measurement, where you're not just looking to, in this case, we sold 388 cars via mobile phone. And here, the interesting part about this was not just that you're selling cars by mobile phone, but the interesting part is that you end up with 6,700 people who are willing to or interested in doing a test drive of the car. And that is an incredible figure because once you get somebody to test drive a car, it's a mathematical formula how many of them actually end up buying a car. So it's a huge victory that way. I think I'm going to skip this part because I'm actually over time. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Very powerful and compelling story about how mobile, social data, and a publisher mindset can really unlock enormous potential and ultimately change completely how we think about communicating with not our audience, but our audiences. So thank you very much. Next up, we have Finian Murphy. Finian is going to take us through a day in the life project that he's been working on at the moment.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks, Andy, for having me along this morning. So I spend half of my working week with the team over at Ignite Research understanding how we go about our daily lives. If I can get the slides up. Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. So one half of the week working with Ignite Research, understanding Irish lives, how we go about our day. And for the rest of the week, I work with different organizations on projects, providing them with an alternative perspective. So this morning, what I hope to do is to provide an alternative perspective on our daily lives. I'd like to take us all on a short journey into the near future. And we look at a date in 5 years' time. So welcome to the 6th of November, 2020. It's 6:45 in the morning. We're all still fast asleep. And your sleep tracker has been monitoring how you're moving in and out of light to dark sleep. It's about to figure out what's the optimal time to wake you up. And it establishes that just after 7 o'clock is the right time to wake. So it sends a signal to your Hue Phillips light bulbs. Your bedroom begins to illuminate, very gently, giving you a natural light, bringing you energy for the day ahead. It's 7:03, and you begin to picture what you need to do for that day. But not so fast, because even in 2020, we still need our caffeine fix. Technology alone isn't going to help, but it will send a signal to your coffee machine downstairs, and you can begin to smell the scent of your Nescafe coffee. Your tracker has also established that your mood for the past 24 hours has dipped slightly from a positive to a negative. And so your Baraka-powered Spotify playlist establishes what are the songs that you get you going and excited for the day ahead. As you listen to the music in the shower, you sing along to the songs that you love. But not a lot has changed in the 5 years. There's still the daily lives that we all lead, and this guy is still in our lives. Yeah, on Morning Ireland, he's just promised another 5 years for this great little country. But on an upbeat note, returning from around the world trip meeting world leaders, President Panty has shared how Ireland has become a more equal Ireland in the past number of years. And in the business and tech world, because this planet simply isn't big enough, Paddy has decided that the Moon Summit will take place to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the summit. But you have more bigger concerns and worries in your life. You've just run out of Weetabix. The kids are screaming at you, and you simply press the button, your Weetabix dash button, adding it to your online shopping basket. And because you don't have to push a trolley around the supermarket, you have more time for yourself, more time for your health and your well-being. You strap on your runners, and you go for a run. You're not doing this just because it feels good, but also it's going to reduce the healthcare costs for you and your family. When you return at 9:52, you send the details back to your Aviva healthcare provider. And at 10:15, you check in with the office. You're wearing a headpiece. Email's not quite a thing of the past, but analytics has figured out what are the key priorities for you today. It's distilled it down to 3 key actions, 3 key tasks, and it's reading them out to you. So you have more time to spend at home or with the family. Speaking of which, when you leave the house, jumping into your Tesla, the house is securely locked up. The house itself notifies Liberty Insurance, and their local patrol security team keeps an eye when you're away in your absence. Also, in terms of safety, at 11:15, you clip on a narrative clip. It's a small video. It's also monitoring the mood and sentiment of your child. You drop them off at the childcare facility. This is powered by Mothercare, and you can keep an eye on their day. You also give them a shout out to boys and girls who launched this in 2015 at the Web Summit, the Bully Bug, a device that they can notify the teacher or the guardian in the room that bullying is taking place, a little wearable device that they press a button on. It's 11:30 and we still have to park, but fortunately the car is able to direct you based on talking to other cars in the area where parking spaces have been freed up. At 12:07, you're 7 minutes into your key meeting of the day, and you've just had the greatest fear that we all do in Ireland. You forgot to turn off the immersion. So you pick up your phone, and through your Electric Ireland or Bord Gáis Energy account, you can quickly turn off the immersion and set the thermostat later on for when you're coming back in. Your tracker has also established that certain nutrients in your body are in need of replenishing. Your Google search has also suggested that your health needs certain nutrients. So you pick up some apple juice and you pay, of course, with your contactless card. That itself also is giving you an understanding of where your transactions take place, making you feel more empowered over your household budget. In the afternoon, you decide to check in with your mum. Now, Andy suggested to me that maybe 107 is too old an age, so we'll say 103 given the way health has gone. And in fact, here she is, working out in the gym, looking great. It's 15:06. She's also wearing a health monitor, and this is sending a signal back also to your family policy. And you're able to check in, looking at our key vital stats and being more preventative about any health concerns that might arise. It's 16:43, and we still have to do our washing, but your washing machine has sent you a signal to say the clothes are nearly finished. Instead of them sitting damp in the washing machine, you're able to delay the rinse, and it'll be ready for when you get home later on. Speaking of which, you've done your 6-hour workday because everything has become a lot more efficient, and you're driving home at 17:58. Your connected car is speaking to all of the other cars, and AA Roadwatch is crunching the data to give you the quickest route home. You pull into the driveway, and your Super Value online delivery is walking right up to your doorstep. This has been added through you pressing that button on different products that you need. And also your connected fridge has been talking to your account about what stock needs to come back in. And at 19:11, it's been a long week. You press your button, the lights begin to dim. Your phone switches to Do Not Disturb. Your takeaway is ordered automatically. Sushi begins to arrive. It's Friday evening. Everyone sits down in front of the TV, and your social recommendations from your Facebook account is giving you the best movies to watch on Netflix for the night ahead. Welcome to the 6th of November, 2020. All of these things are currently possible. The reality is, this is the 6th of November, 2015. All of these products are currently available on the market. They're affordable to customers, and the possibilities are becoming endless in what we do with them. So this morning, what we'll talk about further on later today is your brand ready? What are the opportunities that might exist for us all if we begin to connect all of these devices? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Finian. It's very powerful to see just how connected the world is already and how much data is already out there. The real challenge is to aggregate this, to pull this together, and indeed to ask, how can our brands be relevant and be impactful in a world like this? Hopefully we'll discuss it a bit more in the Q&A afterwards. Our final speaker this morning is Oisin Lunny. Thank you very much. Big green buttons.
Thank you. Good morning, all. Thanks so much for coming. I realise it's early. I realise the Web Summit had a big party last night, allegedly. So nice to see so many people here. Great to be back in Dublin. I grew up here. A lot has changed since I left. If you want to find me on Twitter or find Open Market, those are our kind of Twitter IDs. Do reach out and find me on LinkedIn. I think these events are great for knowledge sharing. But the real kind of long-term value is building a network and making interesting new contacts. So please reach out. I'm sure that goes for all of the speakers. So anyway, I took this kind of brief, if you like, quite literally, and I'm going to talk about robots for a little while. Talk a little bit about mobile phones, my favourite topic, and then talk a bit about marketing. So with no further ado, let's just define what a robot is. It is not the legendary Tron guy on the right, even though that's a pretty good attempt. It's a machine capable of carrying out a complex series of actions automatically, especially one programmable by a computer. It's big in science fiction. It's a person who behaves in a mechanical or unemotional manner. It's another term for a crawler in terms of web search, etc. In South Africa, it's a set of automatic traffic lights. And the origin of the word robot is from robota, which means forced labor in Czech, which I didn't know until I researched for this presentation. Leonardo da Vinci designed this humanoid robot in 1495, so quite a while ago. We're all fascinated with the idea of robots. I grew up wanting to be somewhere between an astronaut and a robot. Blade Runner was one of my favorite films. And so robots are really they capture our imagination in terms of their potential and what they can do for us. This is like the past 50 years or so of robotics, but I think we've reached a stage now where humanoid robots are so accurate and so compelling. I read an article the other day about robots being considered sexy, and apparently, there was some kind of test done. It's something to do with the uncanny valley. There is a certain area of uncomfort with humanoid robots, but they're getting more and more and more lifelike. A bit more about that later. We use robots to kill people hundreds of, or if not thousands of miles away, which is a bit dark. We use robots for all kinds of things. Now, has anybody here watched the IT Crowd by any chance? Some people, yes, wonderful. Okay, so these are, people who might be referred to as the elders of the internet in the IT Crowd. First, you have Musk, Woz, and the Hawk, as he's known, and they have all come together and signed a letter that many hundreds of very intelligent technologists, basically asking for a ban on killer robots. Because once robots have the autonomous ability to kill people, then we're all up shit creek, apparently. So that's a little cheery note there about robots. Robots have come a very long way in the past few years. This is a company that Amazon bought in 2012 called, what were they called again? Kiva. Yeah, they bought it for $775 million in 2012. It boosted productivity in the warehouses by 4. What this little box does is it carries a bunch of other boxes and packages, and then humans follow a laser that's shone on the floor by this little robot here, and then they do the bit that the robots can't, which is taking stuff and sticking it on the shelves. Very fulfilling, I'm sure. Google X announced recently that their Project Wing drone plan is going to be delivering packages by 2017. So technology is moving incredibly quickly. Tesla X launched last week. It's going to be fully automated by 2018. Tesla are going to make fully automated cars. And I don't know if you all know Dilbert. Well, this is from the creator of Dilbert. Scott Adams says on Twitter, he's wonderful. You must follow him. I've just tweeted one of his, using the event hashtag. He says here, Robots read the news. Robots moved ahead with their plan to imprison all humans in metal cages. We call these cages self-driving cars. For the first 10 years, you'll just think the traffic is bad. So this is a great person to follow in terms of a witty commentary on the rise of robots. So coming back to this kind of, human-robot kind of interface, if you like, according to some futurologists, there are going to be such a thing as a robosexual. Yes, this futurologist called Ian Pearson has predicted that by 2050, you'll be more likely to have sex with a robot than another human. So again, another incredibly cheery note there. See, R2-D2's looking a little worried. And of course, we carry robots with us all the time. We have our kind of smartwatches and smartphones. We can tell our watch to get us a coffee. They know so much about our lives. In fact, this has been captured by the Dream Factory. And if Siri was a woman, it would be Scarlett Johansson, obviously. And this is a kind of the universal man of Joachim Felix who falls in love with his smartwatch assistant in this kind of very interesting love story. So yes, we are totally obsessed by robots, but we're kind of a bit freaked out by them as well. This is Hitchbot. I don't know, did anyone see this? But this is a robot hitchhiker who was basically sent out into the world to learn about human kindness, and he was found dead after a few weeks. So, so it's not all rosy. But anyway, enough about robots. Let's talk about mobile phones. So this is a little remix of the Mona Lisa there. The growth of smartphones has been absolutely phenomenal, exponential. Here's the growth of desktops and black laptops and grey tablets in this kind of vague orange colour. But then iPhone and Android shipments up to 2013 is just going through the roof, and this is the trend. This is a slide from somebody called Benedict Evans. You can see him on Twitter at Benedict Evans. He's got a great website as well. And just to put it again into a little bit of perspective, we can see here that in 1995, not that long ago, global mobile penetration was 1% of the population. And moving over here to last year, 2014, we've reached 73% of population penetration. Eric Schmidt, our friend from Google, of course, says that by 2020, 100% of the world's population will be online, and most of this access will be driven by mobile device adoption. So the rise of mobile is huge and fast. And millennials have a very particular relationship with the mobile phones. The smartphones never leave their side. The first thing they do every day is reach for the smartphone. They spend hours on their smartphone every day. And within 5 years, most millennials surveyed believe that everything will be done on mobile devices. And these last two slides are from Mary Meeker's Internet Trends, which is a great report. I really recommend it. Now, analyst firm Forrester have identified that we're in this new age. Tom was talking earlier about the importance of kind of focusing on the customer, not just having, what did he call it? Brand atrocities, which I think is an amazing concept. So we've kind of moved from the age of manufacturing through distribution, through information, and we're now in the age of the customers. So empowered buyers are demanding a new level of customer obsession. Yeah, who would have thought it? 2015, here we are with this new thing called CX, or customer experience. The idea that marketing and sales should focus around the customer journey. So very, very good. Now, according to Forrester, this new age of the customer has 4 business imperatives. Number 1 is to embrace the mobile mind shift. Number 2, become a digital disruptor. Number 3, turn big data into business insights. And number 4, again, back to the CX, transform the customer experience. So this is all kind of driven by mobile device adoption. And as you can see here from this very informative and technically accurate infographic, we're not going back to sitting by our desktops. This kind of evolution is one way. Once you have mobility, you don't want to give it up. So basically, smartphones are taking over. The most kind of widely used communication method on the planet is mobile messages. Now, this is a slide from Google's Our Mobile Planet, which is a fantastic resource. If you haven't checked it out, I'd really recommend it. It's based on a lot of kind of behavioral and demographic data all over the world. And this is a slide showing what happens after people have a search on Google and what they go on to do. So this is from 2013, so it's probably even more pronounced now. But over half of the people who searched for a business visited the business, either online or in real life, and over a third made a purchase. So I will share this presentation afterwards on SlideShare with the event hashtag, or just going to find me on LinkedIn. I can email it to you if you want any of the links or any of the information. So what's happening with mobile is because consumers are using it for everything, they're accessing all these different technologies and behaviors on their smartphones. There is no perceived silo between these different parts of the behavior. And this is breaking down how businesses are looking at things like customer support, alerts, marketing, payment, HR, across the board. It's all happening on the phone. So this is a huge kind of business process change as well. So let's talk a little bit about marketing. So, ad blocking, as mentioned earlier, this is a big deal, because once the ad blocker is turned off, you're not going to, the genius of your creative campaigns is not going to get a chance to shine. The IAB stood up recently and said, we kind of got it wrong. We should have put some more guidelines in place, and they're kind of tried to backpedal a bit and improve the whole advertising experience. But the fact is consumers are not kind of enamored with the way that online advertising works at the moment, and this is like a huge reflection of it. So we're kind of looking at ways around this, like how can we make advertising interesting, relevant again? How does marketing work with the modern consumer and this kind of huge level of CX that they expect? This is the Facebook reactions button that's going to be introduced. So there is an opportunity here to have sentiment and kind of mood-based advertising served, but I just have this nightmare where, if Facebook figures out I'm feeling a bit depressed, I'm going to see an ad for happy pills from some pharmacy company. It's like I'm not sure how much sentiment information I actually want to give to an advertiser, but that's the kind of dynamic, I guess. Advertisers are using really interesting location-based technology like iBeacon and what was the other one? Yeah, Google have one as well. I can't quite remember the name. I did write it down. But basically, this will kind of serve location-based adverts to you based on opting in to, say, for example, a Malls app. If you install the Mall app, it doesn't need to be switched on. You can get push notifications as you're walking past the shop with highly kind of targeted and personalized advertising. So this is quite interesting as well. App fatigue. Now, a lot of the kind of discussions around marketing and how you reach consumers goes back to apps, but I think, we are genuinely seeing app fatigue in the market now. I think the average number of apps that anybody can sensibly handle is something like 14. According to ComScore, the average number of apps installed by the average American per month is 0. So most app installs are coming from a very small number of people. It's not really mass market yet, and certainly brands can't really expect to be viewed as destinations with kind of guaranteed real estate on somebody's smartphone. So there is a kind of issue with apps as well and app fatigue for sure. This, I think, is a genius kind of solution in terms of delivering what the customer wants. This is Google's local inventory. What it does, if you do a search on Google, it will tell you where you can buy it, obviously, but they have APIs into the local inventory of the stores, so they can tell you where you can buy it near you immediately, which I think is great. This, again, Google have always done stuff mobile first and done it brilliantly. And this is another example of kind of looking at the customer journey, not looking at these different elements in isolation, and looking at the whole kind of user path and delivering value and kind of taking out some pain points and really kind of making it frictionless. I just want to chat a bit about Digital Genius, which is a company that does artificial intelligence and kind of NLP analysis of language, and this is one of their clients, Awesome. It's basically a kind of universal shopping assistant. So once you're registered for the service, you can text in and say, I'd like to buy a Maserati, I want to buy a bunch of flowers, I've killed the budgie, where do I get a new one? Whatever it is. And the NLP kind of analysis will look at your message, figure out what you want, and then eventually it will go down to a human at the end of a chain. But it kind of, the analysis is incredible. It's used by a lot of mobile phone companies for things like password resets and roaming and kind of enhancing your kind of mobile package, etc. But I think that the interesting thing about this is it doesn't rely on an app. It doesn't assume that the consumer is going to download an app to interact with the brands they want. Also, the NLP under the hood and the artificial intelligence is very interesting. I think this is a very useful tool for marketing moving forward. This is another example of a company using Digital Genius again. Unilever have created a number of fictional chefs. This is Chef Wendy. And if you buy certain Knorr products, you can actually text into a shortcode and say, hey, I've bought some chicken. What can I do with it? There's 5 people and my wife's vegetarian. And it will actually analyze your question and send you back recipe ideas. And it will remember your mobile number, it will remember your kind of demographic information and that your wife's a vegetarian, and it will kind of keep it in mind for future recipes. So this is a great combination of artificial intelligence and mobile messaging, which is so ubiquitous. Mobile messaging, I think, is reaching over 6 billion people. It's the most widely used form of communication on the planet. So it's a bit of a kind of sleeping giant, I think, of marketing. And it's great to see brands like Unilever using these solutions. Here's a really kind of straightforward but incredibly effective way to use mobile messaging. This is from Ace Hardware in the UK. And they've just put a simple shortcode on all of the point-of-sale material and even the receipts. The average ROI from introducing this way of interacting with customers without an app, it doesn't matter if you have a smartphone or not, or want to install an app or not, you can just text in and get coupons delivered to your phone. The ROI was $401 average, so it can be hugely effective. John Lewis are doing some really interesting stuff. There was many articles written about showrooming and the fact that this is bad for brands. John Lewis are giving away free Wi-Fi in store, encouraging people to showroom because their warehouses have bigger amounts of stock than they have in store. So you go in, you browse, you scan, it gets delivered to your house. Brilliant. There's a couple of white papers that we put together at Open Market. I'd be happy to share them with you. One is all about mobile communication channels and how to interact with your customers, what communication channel to use when to use email, when to use push, when to use SMS, etc. Very interesting, based on research put together by eDigital Research. And coming back to that CX piece, we put together a white paper called How Mobile is Transforming Enterprise Customer Experience. And this is like practically nuts and bolts, how you can use mobile to really transform how your customers interact with your brands. So, 3 good things to recommend around kind of automation, robots, mobile, etc. Number 1, artificial intelligence. It can be a fantastic tool to streamline how you interact with your customers in a way that really delivers a great CX. Number 2, SMS. Don't underrate it. 6 billion humans are using mobile messaging. So SMS is, as Wired described it recently, the universal UI. You don't need an app, you don't even need a smartphone, but it's a way to connect with 6 billion people. Very impressive. And number 3, personalization. As Tom was saying earlier, it's so important to have personalized, targeted content. If it's not personalized, it feels like a raw deal to the consumer, as we see with ad blocking. And 3 very bad things. Apps are wonderful. I love apps. I've got too many apps myself. But an app in itself is not a strategy. It's part of a mobile strategy. And brands tend to overestimate their destination value and kind of assume that they will have real estate on an end user's mobile phone. So it should be a part of a strategy, but it shouldn't be all of your strategy, I would say. Number 2, spray and pray. It misses the target. As mentioned earlier by the guys, broadcasting to mobile devices doesn't work. These are not broadcast devices. They're intensely personal. Most people look at them first thing when they get up in the morning and last thing at night. So broadcasting doesn't work. It needs to be targeted and relevant. And number 3, bad CX. The consumer trend is towards zero tolerance for bad experience. I think it's like 89% of consumers will never do business with a company ever again if they have a bad experience. And this is up from 59% 4 years ago. So the trend is rapidly reaching zero tolerance. So there's a few tips. A little bit about Open Market. We basically help Fortune 500 companies transform their businesses by using mobile engagement. You can see more on openmarket.com. And thank you very much. Do find me on Twitter and LinkedIn and email me. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Cheers.
Well done. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Oisin. We're just going to take 20 seconds to set up for a 10 or a 15-minute Q&A. And we're just going to pop some chairs up on the stage here. I'd invite you all to please ask questions. I'll be back to you, as I say, in about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, morning everybody again. Sorry about that. We've about 10 or 15 minutes. I think we'll aim to have you out in 10 to 15 minutes. But we thought we might just open the panel up to some discussion and any questions you might have. I actually might kick off. I thought a trend that came through in all 3 of your talks and your presentations was a move away from kind of spray and pray approach. It was a kind of commonality through all 3. that the future of marketing in this kind of data and robot-powered world is very much about extremely targeted messaging. I suppose two questions, and maybe we'll start with you, Thomas. Who do you think is kind of doing that very well at the moment? And if a brand is looking to start that journey, what's the first step?
I think you picked a really good trend, and I think the one element of that is the customer focus. Looking to individuals and the way that they're operating. I think brands that are getting it right, some of them, you look to some of the disruptors actually, Airbnbs as opposed to maybe more traditional hotel companies. And these are companies that have grown up in this new customer-centric world. The interesting part about the world we're living in with, when you have an experience with your mobile phone, when you've taken a ride in Uber, you spent, 10 euros on a cab ride, and you're asked, how do you enjoy it? You're asked to rate it. Whereas you can go and spend tens of thousands of dollars for a handbag at a luxury goods company, and nobody asks you if you like that product. And this flip is something that companies really need to take into account very, very quickly, because the consumer expectations have been set. And what previously was something that you could consider as, I leave a message on a Facebook page for a company because I have a problem with their product, and you say, oh, they're not paying attention to Facebook. That's no longer the case. Right now, there's an expectation that there is going to be a reaction, and I now am having a bad consumer experience, which is going to have an impact on the brand going forward.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. We have a couple of roving mics, which are in the form of sort of Android teddy bears. So there's a question over here. Someone's going to throw a teddy bear at you in a second. Well done. You kind of have to hug it close to your chest and speak into where it says.
Okay,
you can just stand up and let everyone see you do that as well. That'd be great. You didn't have to do that. Sorry.
This isn't actually your microphone.
It is, yes, it is. It is. It should say "speak into me" at the top there.
Great. Okay. Quick question for gentlemen from Ogilvy. One was the example you gave on Audi, and you noted there was 3 complaints on their Instagram feed. What was the data behind that? In that, or the examples I'd give is, say, Facebook. When Facebook went to timeline, there was all of our Facebook feeds were full of people complaining that Facebook was moving to timeline and let's move back to the old Facebook. But actually, the data showed that people were much more engaged in it, so that's obviously why they kept it. And similarly, if you went back to Coca-Cola with Coca-Cola Classic, when they brought it out and actually putting up something brought it to a much broader audience. So, and then the other point that I've heard quite a bit, but I don't know if the data stacks up on it, is you were saying that people are becoming not necessarily siloed, but they're just viewing the content they want to view. But actually, if you look back 10 years ago, you realize actually the number of opinions people were getting 10 years ago because they were just reading their local newspaper as opposed to necessarily reading maybe the Huffington Post or the Guardian or a more international feel to it. That where does the data stack up on that people are actually becoming more siloed and how would I say, in their own bubble that's just self-reinforcing? I know it gets mentioned on Twitter, but on a larger context.
Okay, so two questions I'm hearing. One, looking at the Audi example, is this not just an example of the changing of a purpose of a channel? And the other one is the narrowing of focus. Is this happening? We're talking about that. Okay, so first with the Audi example, yes, I showed an example of just 3 comments of many, many on that particular feed, and I would not use that as an example of people changing their behavior over time. And I can't remember which one of you showed the Facebook. They're having their emotion, the full set of emotions they're going to have in there. I would put that in the category of what you're talking about, the evolution over time. At the beginning, people are going to look at that. They're going to say, "Oh, this is interesting," or "This is not interesting." There will be uptake or not. The Audi example I would look at differently. I would look at it as an example of a brand that has had a way that they're engaging with their consumers, and there's an expectation set, almost a social contract that this channel or this way is really about cars. This is for people. The people looking at that are interested in seeing what's the latest Audi car or what are the elements of an Audi car, and suddenly you've switched it from that to something entirely different. So my expectation of what it is different, and it's not an unmet need suddenly created. In terms of the narrowing of focus, I think you raise a really interesting point, which is we've gone through this sort of very local world where you could only look at very narrow amounts of news because you were just hearing, word of mouth, literal word of mouth, or your local newspaper, to this proliferation of information. And what I'd say what's happening right now is if you take it from that proliferation of information, we're narrowing our focus much, much more in terms of what we actually end up seeing. And you can see this is actually measurable in terms of the algorithms of what's delivered to people on their Facebook pages. And we saw that with the decline of organic reach over time, heading to Facebook zero organic reach, where content put up by I have liked brand X, or I don't go and visit the Facebook page of my high school friend very often. The content put out by that brand or my high school friend will appear less and less frequently on my Facebook feed, algorithmically. That's what Facebook does, because I have shown very little interest in it, narrowing the scope of what I'm looking at. Certainly, I'm getting more information than I did back when I was, pre-internet era. So that point is true, but it is a narrowing of focus of what's going on, which presents a huge challenge for brands who are trying to enter in and engage in a conversation. So I hope that answers the questions.
Brilliant. Have we any other questions out there? Anyone want to have the Android thrown at them? Yep. Good catch.
Thanks, Brian. The trouble with this is if you miss it, it's so embarrassing. I have two questions. The first is around data, because an awful lot of what's there is reliant on having data available on the people. And I suppose there's all the talk about privatization, and that's being brought about by people themselves becoming more aware that it's being used, and also governments, I think, are now stepping up and beginning to ask. So my question is how you see that evolving, how you see that changing, where we're going to be moving from us not realizing our data's out there to us being much more self-managing of it. My second question then is in relation to virtual reality, because when Facebook bought Oculus, when Zuckerberg in his announcement to shareholders said that this was going to be an absolute game changer, it was a whole new platform, and that people will completely change how they work. Because up to this point, we've been talking about screens essentially and how we communicate to a screen, whereas virtual reality could potentially, it's about going through the screen. And I'd love to get your view on if you see that as having any impact.
Anyone care to?
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the data and privacy, I think we're in the infancy of the debate about privacy. I think we see that there's a need for campaigns to actually educate customers around that. We ran an event with Agility last year at the Web Summit where we invited everyone to come along. All they had to do was give over all their social profile information. They handed it over, freely, and we presented all of that information back to them in quite an intimidating manner. And people were shocked. So where I hope it would get to for people is that there's that fair exchange. If I decide to track 24 hours of my day through, my health monitor, as you can do on an Apple Watch now, I should be getting something back, honestly, about the data to give me more information about my health. But that's going to be a big risk with who you share that with. And at the moment, I guess there's a lot of debate around how clean the data is. We've got a wealth of data, but we have to figure out which is actually, can be respected, I suppose. So I actually think people need to be more informed about the privacy to make more informed decisions about how to use data and get a good exchange for it. Oculus Rift, I've yet to figure out an application rather than a bit of fun in the pub. But I don't know. Maybe you guys have a view on where VR is going.
I think that the Oculus Rift. Have many people used telepresence in this room? Anybody use telepresence? The difference between doing a phone call and having telepresence is tremendous. It brings in an emotional element to a meeting that with somebody on the other side of the world. So I would view virtual reality as a move in that direction, and it's a next phase of the immersive experience of cinema. So I think there's a huge future for it. I think it's interesting that a company like Facebook decided to take a move in that. It's not, to me, entirely clear why it is Facebook that has to make that move. But the value, I do see a tremendous amount of value in that. Very quickly on data, I very much agree with what you're talking about. We're at the infancy of this discussion about data and privacy, and it's a conversation that needs to be accelerated. It needs to be made more public. People have to understand about it, and I'm afraid we're going to have a large number of breaches, problems, issues raised with data because there's so much information that can suddenly be shared. I mean, look at all the various hackings that go on around the world. And not enough is done to protect people's data around that. And we need to have more, as a consumer, we need to have more control over that data and power over it and understanding of how to protect ourselves.
It's also interesting to have a look at what the mobile phone companies are experimenting with. In the UK, they established a separate company called Weave, which was a cross-network collaboration to sell marketing campaigns by mobile messaging. I don't know. The success has been kind of questionable, if I'm quite honest. But what the networks are doing in the UK now is actually selling raw data about their consumers and collaborating with agencies. So I think Mediacom and possibly Ogilvy, I think, are involved in a trial of what marketing and advertising companies can do with this huge pipe of very, very personalized data. So it's very early days. I think they've just kind of let out of the bag that they have been experimenting with this for the past few months. But I'd say collaborations with people acquiring data and technology and advertising companies kind of layering offerings on top will be a trend as well. But yeah, privacy is a huge issue. There's a thin line between cool and creepy, as as I heard somebody say.
It's a fascinating point, actually, and just to build on it, because a lot of what Finian showed in the Day in the Life piece is in order for brands to be relevant or to be as relevant as possible in that new world, it relies on data. It relies on customer data. And presumably we're in a situation where that has to be provided willingly, or we're moving to a situation where that has to be provided willingly. Is this a currency that we should be planning with now? Is customer data something that we should be actively speaking to our target audiences or our customers and actively encouraging them to share data? And do you think there's a willingness for them to do that?
I think there's a scary willingness of people to share data. They're willing to give out information about their lives, not really understanding what they're doing. So I think there's an education element that has to happen with that. But I think that through that, you can have the better customer experiences to allow companies to serve what people want better. But I think that you want to have it so that it's them knowingly sharing this, not something where you're taking advantage of somebody, because that's going to backfire and it's just the wrong thing to do.
Okay. I think, observation as well. We can talk a lot about data and analytics, but actually it's a case of looking at how people go about their day, looking at their behaviors, what are their motivations, and building off that, and just simply thinking about it from a people perspective rather than data and numbers.
Okay. Okay. Yes, here's a Android coming at you.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. Very interesting stuff. If the reality now and the trend is towards all of the things you touched on, like the smartphone, AI, the Internet of Things, yet ad blocking and then brands forcing content which is shallow is causing consumers to retreat into smaller groups, like you said. Or is there a case maybe 50, maybe even 20 years from now for the rise of the humans, and poor customer experience? So on your chart that actually comes back in, and maybe I'll give that to Oisin.
It's kind of an interesting one, the idea that customer experience is suddenly this new hot area. I'm seeing directors of CX pop up at lots of different companies, and people are like, oh shit, have we got a director of CX? No, we need to hire somebody. We need to be all over the CX thing, whatever it is. So I think this kind of new customer-centric approach is very much driven by mobile device adoption and the fact that consumers get all of these different experiences on the one device. One of the clients at Open Market, we did a huge campaign with them which involved giving people free money on their mobile phone as an incentive to buy a certain sugary fizzy drink, which is very popular globally. And couldn't tell you who they were possibly, but we ran this huge campaign and they had millions and millions of interactions. They literally had millions of people interact with the brand on their mobile devices. But unfortunately, this was a few years ago, and there was a bit of a siloed kind of, agency planning, buying, job done, post-campaign analysis. That's it. Let's forget it and move on to the next thing. So even though they gathered about, 1.5 million numbers and names and all the rest, they didn't do anything with it after the campaign. They just used this as a kind of promotional, a virtual voucher for credit on people's mobile phones. So in this age of joined-up customer experience and in the mobile-first world, the customer always comes first. And it's so important for brands to have a joined-up approach that looks at the entire user journey. In the second white paper I plugged shamelessly earlier, there's a little section about using an approach called TCE, which is yet another acronym. It stands for Total Customer Experience, and it's actually a methodology of looking at the entire customer journey and then identifying where brands and where technology companies can interact with the customer. It's kind of very fundamental CX practice. So I'd be happy to send you that white paper because it kind of looks into how you like you say, you put humans first in this kind of mobile and computer-driven age.
Yeah, and just to pick up on that point, we do the same thing with social, which is if you're talking to a company and they're saying, oh yeah, no, we're not interested in social, it's nothing to do with what our sector is or what our customers do. But if you actually map it out step by step of awareness, comparison, all the way through to purchase and loyalty, what are the potential moments where social would play a role, where they'd be sharing with friends, where they'd be learning something online through social, it suddenly becomes clear that there are huge moments throughout that whole process. So I think that doing a customer journey and looking at it from the consumer point of view is an extremely powerful tool for understanding how, as things are changing rapidly in the world, we have to change our ways of engaging with customers.
Thanks very much. And sorry, just to clarify, I meant on the brand side of it, as in the rise of the humans, responding to consumers rather than digital and social, as in, is there a future for that where you actually need more people on the brand side of things to accurately and properly respond and service customers?
Customer service is absolutely huge. We did a global survey of how people are behaving online and social, and the people who are the biggest brand advocates, who it turns out that they're the ones who are having the biggest impact on brands within social. They're wildly influential. And we asked them what they cared most about with a product or service. Number one was the quality of the product. Does the phone work? Number two was the customer service. And number three was price. In other words, that difference between customer service and no customer service, they're willing to pay money for it. So I think that absolutely what you're saying is absolutely true, that they want that engagement, they want that involvement. And the expectation has now been set by this consumer-focused disruptor element of Uber being one example, asking how was your drive. This expectation has been set that everybody else is now going to have to answer to.
There's an interesting use case for Digital Genius. I was kind of going on about them a bit earlier because it's a very interesting company. They provide a solution for one of the big global mobile phone networks, and it analyzes messages that come in and looks, so say if technically, if I want to go to Germany, I might need to add a week of roaming and kind of change my package temporarily or something. So this is like quite a complex ask. And it used to be, how you traditionally do this is, you'd ring up a call center, you'd sit listening to a flute solo for half an hour, and then eventually you'd speak to somebody, and, you'd have to repeat yourself, and, then you get passed to somebody else. So they've introduced Digital Genius kind of AI analysis. So you can basically text in and say, make my phone work in Germany next week, or I'm going on holiday in Europe, or, it can be very broad, and the AI will actually analyze it, and then text back and say, do you mean you want to add a week of roaming in Germany starting here? That will be £10, whatever it is. And what this is actually doing is freeing up, like you say, the humans with the very kind of high value, high touch kind of customer care queries to concentrate on the stuff that's actually kind of high value to the end user. So, the machinery, the robots, if you like, are making it easier for very basic customer care queries to be handled easily and quickly, and it frees up the call center people to deal with the more kind of tricky, high-touch points. So I think that's a kind of interesting trend, stuff that should be simplified and made quicker, maybe through like sending in a text message, is and should be, and it actually frees up people to be more human and actually spend more time with the customers.
Thank you, Oisin. Unfortunately, we're under a very tight time in the Foundry. There's a very quick turnaround for another session. So we've run out of time with the Q&A, but hopefully the guys might be able to hang around for 10 or 15 minutes afterwards to have a discussion outside if anyone has any follow-up questions. In the meantime, it just remains for me to say thank you very much to all of you for making the effort to travel in today, and especially on such a tricky travel day. And a huge thank you to our three speakers, to Oisin, to Thomas, and to Finian as well. So thank you very much.